Domestic violence, a sensitive topic, and there has been new laws that have come through in the workplace. We have a lawyer, and in property with legislation. So stay tuned. We're going to tell you about them this morning.
Good morning, everyone. Shelley Tamas joins us from Fair Work Solutions this morning. Thank you for coming on.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. It's always nice to have a professional guest on. We do love it. It certainly is a good way to kick off the week.
I think so.
So we're here to talk about a sensitive topic this morning, Mark, but certainly an important one. And it's slowly starting to be recognised in legislation as well. So there's some big changes.
Yeah, it's super
big time. Hey, Billy, congrats on an 11:45 p.m. Sunday night sale.
Thanks, Mark. It was like a baby. Yeah. It was like a baby shark getting the taste of first blood.
Yeah. Well done. Good effort. Congrats to the purchasers and the sellers. So this has actually slowly been becoming more and more prevalent and acknowledged over the last couple of years. Shelley, in our industry, in the property industry with legislation, if you were in a lease and you were a victim of domestic violence, there wasn't a way to formally or easily end your lease. But with new legislation passed and that's come through, it's now quite simple. So once you've got the correct process followed, you can break your lease nice and easy. And now we're starting to see that in the workplace. So can you tell us a little bit about what you do first before we run into it?
Yeah, sure. So I'm an employment lawyer and I specialize in workplace law. So I help business owners and employees with their workplace issues. So this is something that I do help with and I do see a lot. And I'd love to tell everybody about the changes because they are super important.
Yeah. And you are my niece, sort of
cousin. I am your niece. But that's the most important part here for sure.
Yeah. So, okay, tell us how it's changed with domestic violence in the workplace now. What are the things that you're starting to see?
So I think it's probably important to talk about like what was the past and what is now present. So before they used to have access to 5 days unpaid leave, so employees did. And now the way that it's changed is that they have 10 days paid family and domestic violence leave. And this goes to full-time, part-time and casual employees as well. So it started this month. So the 1st of Feb for businesses that have over 15 employees, the paid leave starts now. But because of the fact that it is a more onerous obligation on employers for small businesses, it starts on the 1st of August. So up until then, for those businesses, employees can still access the 5 days unpaid. So that's technically how it's changed. And I think it's a great thing, particularly because, this is a time where people do need that support. And particularly they are worried not only for their safety, whatever the situation may be, but they're also worried in the back of their minds, do they have a job at the end of this to support themselves?
It doubles the stress.
It
so
does.
with those that leave, is any of that like with COVID payments, they're all sort of subsidised by government. Is that leave purely subsidised by the employer?
It is. In the same way that personal leave is paid by the employer and annual leave is paid by the employer, this will be too. And there are some minor differences that do really impact an employer, such as the fact that, this leave is accessible in 10 days in full at the anniversary of their employment. So each year they get those 10 days. So it doesn't accrue the way that annual leave accrues. It's just something that they have a right to. And it restarts every year. So it doesn't accumulate like leave. It's just a 10 days. and it's at their full rate of pay. So like annual leave, that is something that's paid at their base rate, so their hourly rate. But say, for instance, an employee was supposed to work, say, today on Monday, and they were going to do a full day's work plus overtime. And if this was a situation, unfortunately, that they were experiencing domestic violence, they would still be eligible for that full day, including the overtime, penalties, loading. So it is much more than what they ordinarily would have in other types of leave.
Yeah, that's huge.
Okay. It's amazing that it wasn't around before. So people just went to a doctor and got sick leave when domestic violence happened previously, or how did they approach the employer previously on it?
Well, there aren't really too many rules on what's considered to be evidence. An employer can definitely ask for evidence, and they should, because, a lot of people have asked me, what's going to stop an employee from just making something up. But, you could get a letter from their counsellor or the police that they've chatted to, or a social worker, or even a stat dec is suitable as well. So there are ways to do it, but it needs to be done sensitively.
I've got a question for you. Do you think, as you say, it's a very sensitive subject this morning, but do you think with the improvement in legislation here, you'll find more people freely coming forward now? Or have you noticed those numbers change at all? I suppose another question.
Look, I think definitely we will see a change, because before, it is such a sensitive topic that, as you said, Mark, I think a lot of people did go for the personal leave. They're saying they're sick. But now the way that the rules have changed is that, particularly for people experiencing financial abuse, on the pay slips, whenever paid family domestic violence leave is used, it can't actually be shown that they've taken the leave. So it's usually reflected as their ordinary hours or a bonus even. So, it's important for employers to know, not to put it there unless specifically requested, just in case, because you don't know what kind of ramifications that could have at home.
That's true. Very true.
I wonder, I find it unusual that that already wasn't the case. Do you know what I mean? Like, you would have thought that these events would have been, it's sort of pretty logical. You know what I mean? Just to think, of course, that's how it actually should be. But I guess it shows you how we're evolving a little bit as a society with things that people don't like to acknowledge, or things that people don't like to talk about or admit are being addressed and then put into legislation.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And this year in particular, we're seeing a lot of that. So this is not only the sole wonderful change that we're seeing. So there's a lot of things like even sexual harassment in the workplace, things that, we thought was common, not so commonplace, but something just we should have always known about and talked about, but it's really coming to light this year. So I think, it's going to be a really good year for workers' rights, particularly.
Yeah, right. Yeah. What about the shoe on the other foot for employers? It seems like it's not really, if you looked at the amount of legislation that comes out for the employer compared to the employee, it seems the employer, there's a lot of legislation that just keeps on rolling in to make it a great workplace. But for employers, like the way Billy treats me as an example, I think I've got rights there. But it does seem like I think these things are good, and I think also for the employers, they've been affected obviously over the last couple of years with the economy. I'm probably biased.
No, it's a really, good question, because look, these sorts of things do impact everybody. And for employers, I would say the big risk is obviously it's another cost to the business, right? You're going to have to pay those 10 days if the employee does need them. And that's something that you'll now need to budget for in the unlikely event that it does happen. But also there are I would say, regulations on how this is done. So it's really important for business owners to have a policy in place on how they should approach this. So it's something that they could use internally, and for their employees also to be able to go, okay, I do have this leave that I can use, but they need to have that evidence. So that will support the employers. So having a policy is really important, and getting advice really, really does help.
I meant like with everything else through the last probably 5 years of business and for employers, but in terms of what we're talking about here and on topic, I think great employers and decent employers, which most employers are, do this already, acknowledge this already, and it's not it's not a change to business. Because I know certainly over being an employee for 20 years, you got to support your team, you got to support your crew, with the wins, with the highs, and with the lows, and I think this sort of legislation coming in place is just riding what's already done in the workplace. Like, you'd have to be a bit of a rotten egg to not do this. So but I was just saying about other legislation coming in. It seems like there's a lot of stuff, but this particular one is just an acknowledgement.
It is. And on that note, yes, okay, look, Australian legal system in employment law is quite employee focused. It really is, and I'm definitely going to acknowledge that. But there is that know-how really to help you navigate it, to really protect the employer's rights. So you definitely do have employers' rights, but I would say that Australia is pro-employee when it comes to legislation. Yeah, and this is also
it's a great place to work.
Yes, absolutely. So that's good for you, Bill.
Yeah.
Before we go, Shell, is there anything else out there that you would like to tell us in the workplace? So basically, you are an employment lawyer. Any other observations over the last 3 months, 6 months that you've seen changes coming through, or lots of questions that you're being asked?
Look, every single day is a new day when it comes to these sorts of questions, so it's hard to really pinpoint it at the moment. But I think the other big question that people are asking is really how to approach the looming and incoming recession, really, and what to do about employees that they're finding they may not have the ability to keep. So that's something that I've been seeing lately a lot, unfortunately. So yeah.
So that's
people, you're seeing a bit of shedding jobs.
Yes.
And then people want to know how to do that, and that's interesting. So is that the last couple of weeks, months, or what's the time frame on that?
Look, my guess is as good as yours. We're going to have to see how the economy holds up in the next few months, particularly with the interest rates rising and the changing nature of people's buying habits. We may see a decrease in foot traffic in retail and many other sectors, and I'm sure you guys have potentially been feeling that in the property market as well. With people, I'm not sure exactly how conservative people are being in the property market these days, whether they're selling. I know rentals is going a bit crazy, but we're going to see a change in how people behave, and that will definitely be reflected in employment for sure.
That's awesome.
Interesting.
Just plug your business, your website here quickly. So it's some of your services there, where to find you. We've put a link to your website in the comments as well. fairworksolutions.com.au is where you need to go.
Thank you so much, guys.
Pleasure. Is that it? Is that the episode?
Yeah, that's it.
Lovely.
Not too nervous.
So,
not too hard.
Shell, for the first time on our show, you were cool as ice, smooth.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Well, I have you guys. You guys are pretty cool too. So just bouncing off that energy.
Good on you, legend. And Pepper, so guys, reach out if you need Cousin Shell for anything like that. And thank you so much for coming on today and educating on us. And well done to the New South Wales Australian government to supporting some good legislation.
yeah, it's a really great change to see.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
See you guys. Cheers. Bye.